Hey everyone, today for another vlog, and today I would like to talk about inner rebellion. What is it? I guess this kind of this conflict that I noticed in myself, which is kind of why I want to make this video. Very pervasive pattern in my life, very much always been there. I've never been able to name it. I think I've sort of always had this sense of, oh yeah, that's what's happening, but I never like had this concrete sense of like, really looking at it and giving a name. So like, there's external rebellion, which is basically obviously the various strategies that people do, especially children, do to sort of get control of their lives. The key point I would say is control. I guess the two biggest needs of your human being, we could say it's control and love. Right? So I think that's how I would summarize it. Like, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it's a bit complicated, I find. So if we had to summarize it in two terms, it's control at the bottom and love at the top. And there's sort of like a spectrum in between. It's not a binary, but the two are really important. And I think the way like children and teenagers generally get control is by like a more covert form of rebellion. Right? Like straight up rebellion is often not possible for people because just the structures that they work within is not uh doesn't allow that. And so like the more covert form is basically like a lot of what you see like procrastination typically, right? Like people wonder why they procrastinate, but I mean, when you look at it this way, it's kind of obvious that this is what people are doing. Right? It's just like like the type of thing where like someone can't force you what to do. Well, they can kind of force you what to do, but you're going to do it your way, right? Which is like sort of delaying it as long as possible, and then like even if it hurts yourself, it, and if you have to do something, then it's always like trying to do it your way, right? So I think this form of covert rebellion has always been my sort of my thing, right? Like procrastination has been a huge one. Like people often talk about having ADHD, but it's just a part of me that thinks, like to what extent is it just like a normal rebellion strategy, or like not paying attention to something that's really boring? Like people always try to like diagnose people, like the children, as problematic, but they never bother examining the system that the people are within. Because there's just this very basic question that needs to be asked, like what, like if the system we lived in was really really dysfunctional, how would we be able to tell? Because obviously the system will always try to blame individuals. But like, just think about it. It's so obvious. Every system that we live in will never, it will never be like the responsible of the system that to like take into account its own failures. It will always like blame, pathologize individuals because that's just way easier for the system, and that's how it keeps its control on people. And so yeah, like to what extent is like a lot of like this attention deficit just like a rebellion strategy against things that you don't give a shit about. Like I think that's kind of important to think about. And so like this the sort of covert rebellion has been a huge pattern in my childhood and teenager years and also university. Right? Like always, yeah, always delaying things, like not wanting to pay attention, really not wanting to do the things I am told that in school. Just an awful experience that school was, in my opinion. Like just it was just so awful because it was just pure coercion. Like everyone that talks about school and how to improve it and that doesn't focus on the main point being, the fact that the fact that basically no student wants to be at school is like completely lost in what the problems of school are. Like they try to talk about like, reforms and like changing the program to fit this and that, and like it's like they just get lost in the like the little tree, right? Like they don't take the look at the forest and like even bigger than that is like all the ecosystems related to the forest, if you will, to keep the analogy. Like they just get lost in the like super specialized domain of like pedagogy and education and all that. They don't even like acknowledge the basic reality that like 99% of kids don't want to be at school. Like, it's a miserable experience, and that the coercion is fundamental to school, and that's why people hate it. Right? Like the fact that they don't acknowledge that is insane. That's why this external rebellion then is to be contrasted with like what I would call internal rebellion. What so like it's external, but it's still covert, right? So it's not like fully explicit. It's not obviously like if you were like explicit about being a rebel, you would be punished for it, right? So obviously it has to be covert for teenagers and children, or generally people who are not in a position of power. But inner rebellion is kind of weird because it's kind of like being the rebel to yourself, so to speak, or like wanting to make plans for yourself but not following them because you don't want to obey to someone, even that someone is you. That's the pattern I'm noticing in myself. Like this way in which like I don't want to follow a plan, even if I'm the one who made it. That's really interesting, right? Um, and it makes me think, like how what are the options left after that? Well, like obviously there are many more ways to approach something than just a plan, but it's like the most straightforward, right? To have a plan and to stick to it, uh, and to sort of make room for the fact that you can't follow it perfectly, but still, but like a lot of the times I don't even want to do anything regarding the plan. I really don't want it, or like it's not even like I'm wanting to compromise like 50% or like just a bit, just to compromise a bit. Like lately, I really don't want to compromise at all for any plan, even if they are my own. Although I have been doing it still because kind of need to survive it. Um, but like yeah, and I think another element I didn't think about, what I just realized, is that yeah, I think it kind of feels like my compromise meter, not my compromise tolerance is a lot lower these days than when I was at school and I had to, and like you know, and because I have to go to a job which I don't like, it feels like the meter is already full, so to speak. But like I'm already fed up obeying orders and doing stuff I don't want, so I don't want to do it when I'm on my free time. And so I think I've just I've just named the problem really well by just talking about it. This one has been really helpful in that regard. Like it just feels like when I'm on my free time, I don't want to listen to a plan, even if that plan is reasonable, important, or whatever. Like I don't want that shit. I want my control back. Like once again, control and love. Yeah, I just really want my fucking control, right? Like even if it's a plan that comes from me and that is valuable, like it's just like fuck off. Like the inner rebel doesn't really make sense until you see it in yourself. Uh, it's a really yeah, it's one of those things that looks really weird, and I think the way it manifests is also really weird. Right? Like I think I remember seeing a few tweets about like addiction, and that's where the idea of control and love came from. The tweets about addiction basically talking about like it's not about the addiction, it's about something deeper. And there were like various ideas thrown around. The two main ones that struck me were again control and love. I think that's a really key point, right? Like uh, having a sense of agency and also like sort of trying to fill a void of love. I think that's quite an accurate observation. And yeah, I think the ways the inner rebel appears is it kind of looks self-destructive. Like people talk about self-sabotage, but I think it's a lot more subtle than that. I think it's a lot more uh, we could say rational than self-sabotage, because self-sabotage, it just looks like nonsense. Right? Like why would someone just throw out their success or like throw out a plan or just destroy something for no reason? I think what people often call self-sabotage is honestly just this attempt, which is unconscious, not very, not fully uh, embracing of what's happening, but like a bit stuck in trauma, we could say, of trying to get control once again. Right? It's an attempt to get control, and trying to suppress it with more, uh, you know, coercion doesn't work for obvious reasons. Right? Like you can't you can't meet someone who wants control with coercion. They will hate it even more, even if it's someone in you, even if it's a part in you. So what is what is the solution then? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I knew it, but the fact that I can see this has been really helpful. I think what is helpful is at least to start with baby steps, or just baby steps of allowing myself to, yeah, fuck off to the plans and doing that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like, how to say, I'm gonna try the compromise strategy, which is to set up a time where I commit to something, even if I'm not feeling like it. Just have a commitment, but have a commitment that is bounded in time, right? Not a commitment that like need to do for just like 2 hours on Saturday and Sunday for something, right? Like that kind of thing, right? Very specific commitment, very reminiscent of school. That's probably why I haven't tried it so far. But what I notice is that if I don't have this boundary, this explicit boundary, the the verbal kind of doesn't want anything to do with it, because like it kind of feels like it always has to be like on the sideways, where like it kind of feels like he kind of feels like I should be working all the time on that, and so he doesn't allow it. He doesn't allow anything, right? But if it's like a very explicit contract of like, let's do something for 2 hours and that's it, very explicit contract. I think the rebel is more willing to cooperate and being integrated in the whole system, right? Rather than like trying to carve out his own boundary, which might be excessive, which might not be considered the other ones if there is no explicit compass. So that's going to be my strategy personally. I don't know if it will work, but it's my conscious attempt. We'll see what happens. But I can only know it's been trial and error. But it seems to be like the most straightforward one for me. Another direction that is possible is to work with other people. But like if you want to do something, it's a lot easier to just surround oneself with people who do that same thing as well. Because obviously we cannot tend to mimic the people around us, and it's a lot easier to keep going if you have someone with you that who can talk and sort of share difficulties as well. So that's another direction for sort of a resistance to doing anything. I think it's surrounding yourself with people. Yeah, I would say those are the two ones I can think of, are like very deliberate, specific intent, very definite like project management, or like specific time to do something, and group group stuff. So yeah, that's about everything I'd say for today. It's a very deep topic, so I'm probably gonna keep going back to it again and again in my life. Like the inner rebel, I doubt it's gonna like disappear just like that. But it's important, right? Like to sort of recognize. Oh, it just reminds me of a great book actually. I've been listening to the audiobook of Steppenwolf by Herman Hesse, and well, it's a story about. It's not like an actual werewolf, from what I understand. I don't think it's going to go that direction. I've listened to like let's say 20% of it. I think it's a metaphorical werewolf, where like it's someone who has like a part human, what very social being, what like, willing to compromise and stuff, and a very like wolf part, which is like very solitary, a bit rough around the edges, or doesn't want to compromise, doesn't want to sacrifice to cooperate, is willing to be alone, somewhat rude and all that. And so like, you have these two parts in the main character, and I think that describes a lot of people honestly, like the sort of dual nature of like wanting to be with people. Well, once again, isn't it about control and love, right? I think it's once again the theme of this episode is control and love. The wolf wants control, he wants independence, and the human part wants love, is more willing to compromise because of it, and the wolf is far less willing to compromise because he comes from a place of control, right? And so, yeah, I think the sort of inner rebel and sort of the struggle described in Steppenwolf is this struggle between those two parts, and I guess it's not an easy one, right? Like if it was easy, I don't think Hammond has would have written an entire story, which is quite long. I think it's like in the 300, 400 pages. Yeah, it's quite a story. Yeah, I would highly recommend it. And it's in the public domain now, so I think. So I'm listening to the audiobook on YouTube, so it's perfectly legal from what I understand. It's in the public domain. So yeah, that's about everything. That's it for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.